Interest rates are surging, and so some Kiwis are asking, when's it going to stop and where are interest rates going to go? In fact, Nathan Hampshire recently asked on YouTube, are you guys expecting to see 10% retail interest rates? So in today's video, you are going to get my latest interest rate forecasts. Interest rates are currently at or very near their peak. We've seen the one-year rate go from about 2.2% all the way up to about 6.5%. I expect that it will increase to about 7% by the time we get to mid-2023 before dropping back mid-next year to about 6%. Eventually we'll get to that long-term rate of around about 4.5%. Now, to put that into context, let's compare these predictions with ANZ Banks, our largest bank in New Zealand, with their predictions. You'd see we're a wee bit more conservative than their forecast throughout 2023, and then we're about on par by the time we get to 2024. So Nathan, I don't see interest rates, or at least the special interest rates, hitting 10%, and that probably leads you to ask why. So why are interest rates going up? It all comes down to inflation. Now, inflation is the rate at which prices are increasing. Think about it this way. When I was a kid, a $2 mixture would have been enormous. It would have been like a bag of lollies. Today, 25 years later, it's probably not going to get you very much. And the reason is that over time, the cost of things tend to go up, and so each dollar buys you less stuff. Now, the Reserve Bank has a target to keep inflation between 1% and 3%, and historically they've been pretty good at that. But currently we are way outside the band, and the cost of living is going up at about 7.2%. So what's happening is that reserve banks all around the world are increasing interest rates to try and get inflation down. Once inflation is tamed and is starting to come down, we will start to see interest rates coming down as well. If we look at the forecasts, we can see that inflation is likely at or near its peak, and that most banks and financial institutions around New Zealand are expecting it to come down back inside that band around about early 2024. And that's why I don't think we're going to see the one-year interest rate increase much more, and will likely come down over time. One thing a lot of property investors ask about is the OCR, which is the Reserve Bank's interest rate. At the time of recording, this has just been increased by another 0.5%. We're sitting at 4.75%. So some of you might be thinking, well, how is the one-year interest rate not going to increase much more if we're still seeing the OCR increase? The first thing you need to know is that the OCR has gone from about 0.25% up to 4.75% where it is today. The Reserve Bank only thinks this is going to increase to about 5.5%. So we are already a good way through the tightening cycle. If we think about all the increase we expect to see in the OCR, about 85% of that increase has already happened. We're not expecting to see much more. And in fact, here's a clip from one of the most recent Reserve Bank press conferences with the Reserve Bank Governor talking about this.
We are mature in our tightening cycle. February, March, April next year, according to our projections, is a lot closer than the beginning of the tightening cycle. So as you can see, we are there, and you should also, I know you understand as well, we started from a position of well below any sense of neutral. So you had to go a long way just to get to the start line.
So the first thing is we're a good way through the tightening cycle. That's why I'm not expecting interest rates to increase much more. But in addition to that, you need to know how banks set interest rates. Banks think about, where do we expect the OCR to go in the future? Let's set our interest rates based on that. So when we recently saw the OCR increase, we saw no change in the one-year mortgage rates, and the reason is that banks were already pricing in future increases in the OCR. Here's the Reserve Bank Governor talking about this again.
The decision was that the meal was higher than otherwise expected interest rates, and to get there sooner than we had anticipated. So, we're comfortable within the timelines that we've imposed to achieve that. It's not like we don't stop watching the economy and wake up again in 3 months' time.
So mortgage interest rates are set on the basis of where banks think the OCR is going to go. So rather looking at that 0.5% increase and thinking, oh no, the OCR's gone up, we need to increase our interest rates too, the banks would have said, sweet, increase by 0.5%, that's what we expected to happen. You might be thinking, Ed, you don't know what you're talking about. And if you've watched some of my other interest rate predictions videos, you will have seen that the numbers I predicted haven't turned out in practice. That's to be expected, and I've been wrong just like almost every other economist in the country. But if you've been subscribed to this channel for a while, which you should do by the way, because we release great videos every Monday and Wednesday, you'll know that you need to have a sense of where interest rates are going to go so you can run the numbers on your investment properties. Now, do I think that my predictions are going to be exactly what happens? Absolutely not, but you need to have a sense of what might happen so you can run those numbers. Where are interest rates going over the long term? My prediction is about 4.5%. And the reason behind this is that over the long term, there's been about a 2.5% difference between the OCR and the 1-year interest rate. So if we think about where the OCR is going to go over the long term, we can look at what the Reserve Bank calls their neutral interest rate. This is where they are neither trying to make the economy go faster or they're not trying to make the economy slow down. So if you think the neutral interest rate or the long-term OCR rate is about 2% at the moment, add on 2.5%, you probably say the 1-year interest rate's going to be about 4.5%. Now, do I actually believe that in 3 to 4 years' time, for the next 10 years, the 1-year interest rate's going to be 4.5%? Absolutely not. But we don't know what's going to happen in the future, so I think that's a good assumption.